Do you know these moments? These moments when you're scrolling through something, YouTube, social media, e-horses, you name it. And then you're thinking something isn't right here. You see shiny horses, sparkling bro bands, and a caption that says, "Happy athlete." And at the same time, you're seeing that the horse is gait abnormal, or the horse can't breathe, or the horse is showing a pain face, and you're thinking something isn't right here. And then you're listening to what the people who are in the big sports are discussing, or not only in big sports, actually everywhere. They are talking about happy athletes, about how much they love their horses. And at the same time, you read the headline, FAE withdraws the no blood rule. Seriously? Seriously, people? Are we talking about happy athletes while accepting blood in the mouth as sometimes unavoidable? Seriously? In my perspective, that is not progress. That's cognitive dissonance on a global scale. Because let's be honest, happy athletes don't bleed. And I'm very sad that we need to discuss that at all. But obviously we need to. And that's what we will do today, and how this can happen at all. My name is Selina Skogan. I am the founder of Equidemia, a evidence-based training platform. And this year, this is the Equidemia Compass podcast, where we navigate the space between knowledge and practice, and the space where sometimes things are getting a little bit uncomfortable, but meaningful. Can't have it all. So welcome to this episode about a cognitive dissonance. I hope you enjoy this deep dive. So let's have a look at that. Cognitive dissonance, cognitive what? What does that actually mean? Sounds complicated, but really it's not. When we are looking at the words on their own, then we are getting the broader context quite quickly. So first we have cognition, and cognition means thinking, perceiving, processing information. And then we have dissonance, and dissonance we often know from in the context of making music, for example, because there it is meaning a disharmony, a mismatch. And that is exactly what the word is describing. We are perceiving a mismatch, a disharmony. So cognitive dissonance is that moment when I know one thing but do another, or when I hear one thing but see something else. And that is what I'm experiencing often, especially in the horse world, but also when we're speaking about our partners or about our children. My brain is then desperately trying to smooth over the contradiction. My horse needs movement on the one hand, but I leave him in the box because there's no turnout in winter. How can my brain is getting, you hear that already, you know, my brain is getting into trouble there. It's trying to smooth over that mismatch. I know the saddle pinches, but on the other hand, I ride anyway because the clinic is paid for. Also here we have this huge mismatch, and the brain doesn't know how to handle it. The more we know, the harder it gets to ignore what doesn't fit. And that tension, that is simply exhausting. And that is something that I'm often experiencing when I'm, in whatever barn I am, when I'm on a clinic, but also when I'm looking at the media. Let's take a little, the Equidemia Compass wouldn't be the Equidemia Compass if it wouldn't give you the whole picture and wouldn't explain you the background a little bit. And this time we are discussing where this cognitive dissonance is coming from and who has been describing it first. And that was Leon Festinger in 1957. And he's speaking about the art of self-justification. So what he's explaining, or what he has been finding out, is that humans are craving cognitive consistency. And cognitive consistency, that is a sense of inner alignment in between what we think, feel, and do. And that is exactly the opposite of cognitive dissonance. Crazy shit. So, and when that harmony that we are striving for, the alignment of what we think, feel, and do, if that harmony is breaking, the brain is experiencing stress. And the brain hates stress. So instead of changing our behavior, that would be logical, right? It is tweaking perception, because that's the easiest way out. And that is the easiest way to go back into our comfort zone. And this is also the reasoning why we so often hear that saying of growth is happening outside the comfort zone. And often that is sadly right. But in reality, it sounds like this. So it is a rider that is explaining that the horse is throwing ahead because it is lively, or because the sun is shining, and not because it hurts, or it is in discomfort, or my hand is too strong. Or it is describing that the bit is helping me to ride more delicate. It's not more pressure. Of course, especially if we had to change the bit for the 10th time within a year. And now the bit is getting thinner and thinner. So we can actually add more and more pressure with the same amount of weight in our hand. Is that logical? Nah, not really. If we are looking at the fact, that is one of the reasons why I like to work so much fact-based, why I'm so often saying it's not about what you think, it's not about what you believe, it's here. Paper, facts, and what we know, what we can actually measure. But for the brain in that moment, it's very logical. It's very logical to just try to smooth this out. Is it accurate? Nein. But that is the brain trying to protect our self-image, the self-image of we are a horse lover, we are a good rider, we are doing the best for our horses. And then I'm sometimes seeing that in smaller groups. So just recently I've heard we are seeing horses that are chronically sick and show a body conditioning score of 11 maybe. Let's all agree on that this is much too fat, and that this is, especially if we have already horses with an orthopedic or whatever disease, that is not adding equine welfare, right? So instead of changing the situation, the justification is, but if I'm doing it differently, my horse will get gastric ulcer. Yeah, but in between starving a horse and creating gastric ulcer and feeding it fatter and fatter, there's quite a wide range in that we could do something, and that we could change something. We could get, for example, professional help. We could get a ration calculation. We could get a nutritionalist on the job for getting an advice. And there's so many good colleagues out there. And if you don't find one, come to us. We're doing that for a living. You can pay us for doing it. It's not so difficult. But instead of really taking this step and changing something, we find reasons, our brain finds reasons for protecting our self-image and for not doing it. If you would be German, I would quote now a German, rap band that has been very popular in my youth. Okay, I know that's quite some years ago, but the title is Jein. It's a mixture in between yes and no. And the title of the band is Fettes Brot. Maybe you want to look it up anyway. It's quite funny, actually. And if you have a little idea about German, you will get the context quite quickly, because they are talking about, should I really do it or should I leave it? And that old song, which literally means yes, no, is basically 3 minutes of Festinger just with rhythm. It captures what happens when two truths are coexisting in our mind, or in our gut and our mind. We know what is right, but we find a dozen tiny reasons to not act on it because it's more comfortable for our brain. And that is what is happening in a barn. Should I ride today or should I walk? Or should I check the saddle fitting? Or basically, I know I should check the saddle fitting, but maybe better not because I can't pay the bill for a new one. And should I have a closer look, or should I keep myself telling myself that this is fine, though I know that the trot is maybe not clean? The clear answer is Jein. And especially in my younger years, I had that feeling very, very often. Also because commonly we don't trust veterinarians, right? We are seeking also for professional advice that is not confirming our uncomfortable suspicion that something might be right, or I need to change something. I am searching for people around me who are confirming my bias and saying, no, that is right. Just continue riding. Just continue. You are a good horse person. Do what you want to know. And that is where I am sometimes walking in very, uncomfortable shoes when I'm having the spine and say, this is the moment where we need to change something. This is the moment where we need to do something else. By the way, if you hear strange sounds in the background, it's everything fine here. And we also don't have a broken door. That is my dog dreaming. He's having a deep sleep phase and sounds very funny and quirky here in the background. So let's keep it with Fettes Brot. Jein. The reason why we do that is that consistency feels safe for us. And when head, heart, and what we are doing, our hand is pointing in the same way, life runs smoothly. We feel pleased and happy with ourselves. Dissonance, on the other hand, feels messy and vulnerable. And often it is leading us into, if we are really changing something and it forces us to reflect, we maybe need to admit that it is wrong. And we maybe need to change something, and that is painful. Especially when it means, we are realizing we missed something out. Our horse tried to tell us that it's not only a habit that we need to change, like, when people are trying to discuss cognitive dissonance, then they are often discussing smoking or the abuse of nicotine, because that's a very popular example. Everybody knows that smoking is harmful, but today I needed to calm myself down, for example. So they do it anyway and are harming themselves by doing it. So we are defending our self-image in front of ourselves, and we are discussing with ourselves, I'm a good rider. I would never harm my horse. I have been choosing the best training method. I do love my horse. And both is true, but love alone is not always leading us to the best choices. It's not always protecting a horse from bad decisions or our partner or whatever, but honesty does. And that is why I think it's a very good idea to have I really like this emotional framework, and I also like it that people are very attached to their horses. But often, I would just wish that we are taking decisions that are a bit more fact-based, where we have a little bit more, reasoning in behind, and where we just don't think we are right and we know what we do. Science has a name for this paradox, and that is a study that we have recently discussed on the podcast. It's a paper from 2021, the review, where Martina Hausberger and her colleagues wrote in the write-up of a paper that they have been publishing, and the paper's name is a bit complicated. It is Detecting Welfare in a Nonverbal Species: Social Cultural Biases and the Difficulties in Horse Welfare Assessment. And here I would like to read up the simple summary for you, what we are finding at the start of each paper that is published. And of course, we will, as usual, link the paper in our newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, you should do it. We are always giving you interesting resources for continuing reading there. So she's writing, or the research team is summing it up, that there is a paradox about the welfare of horses in the domestic situation. On the one hand, horses are beloved partners for most owners. But on the other hand, scientific studies are converging to show that there is a high prevalence of welfare problems. There seems to be a mismatch between theoretical knowledge and field applications. And in this review, we aim at disentangling the possible factors explaining such a paradox. Among them, we consider the impact of anthropomorphic and cultural biases, popular beliefs, but also overexposure to horses with compromised welfare states, which can change owners' representation of what is a normal horse on the under-evaluation of horse welfare state. So that is the big one, and there's a lot of context in this few sentences, and I would like to invite you to take that a little bit apart, because that's it. That is the heart of the problem. In theory, we know what horses need, but we see it differently because our baseline of what is normal has moved so far. We've so much exposed to horses with pain faces, to tense bodies, dull eyes, and hollow top lines, that we mistake compensation or compromise for normality. And the reason for that is, and we have been diving into that here now in the last podcast when we were talking about equine emotions. I mean, one or the other has maybe been thinking about already why I'm picking up this emotion topic at all, when we are usually speaking here on the podcast about gait abnormalities, training perspectives, maybe a little bit of nutrition also. But why are we taking this deep dive into emotions? Yeah, just because it's important. And because we can see emotions in the conformation of the horse, in the face of the horse. And if we are only used to negative emotions, it's so hard to actually see, to perceive what is the different normal. And that is the reason why I'm mentioning it here, because sometimes we can't change the situation, but we can change how is the horse experiencing it. This is where we can discuss life quality. So we maybe can't change that the horse is having, I don't know, arthritis, but we can make its life more livable, more comfortable, more, all of that. And that would be, and that can add life quality so much. And by the way, there's also here, we have some papers and we will discuss that. We will discuss that in time again. Where we actually can see that just by how we're perceiving life is having an impact of how we are perceiving pain. So the pain stays the same, but the feeling that we have about what is painful, what is not painful, or how much pain do we have on a scale from 1 to 10 can be very, very different, just because we are exposed to more positive interactions. And I think that has a value on its own. And there we are talking about numbers of 30 to 40 or 30 to 50. I need to look that up. I'm not completely sure. 32. I know 35% that we can in general change also with nutrition and everything. But I think that is not nothing. That is actually quite a lot of something, and that has a very high value for everybody. And so often, I see so often horse owners who are in a bad place, in a bad situation, because they know that the horse is maybe having a chronic disease and they don't know how to come out of it. And then they have all these guilt and stuff, and they are trying all their best with buying fancy things for the ponies and fancy supplements and fancy training methods and whatever, because they can't accept that the chronic disease won't go away instead of investing into positive emotions, which would be much cheaper and have a much bigger impact than a fancy supplement where nobody is earning anything more than just the industry that is producing it. So hence I'm always saying it is so it's so important to invest into positive emotions, that I can't underline it often enough. And I promise you, we will go back here on the podcast also to biomechanics and everything around it, and to gait abnormalities and training. But have this emotion thing somewhere in your suitcase, somewhere in your toolbox. That is the right word. Somewhere in your toolbox, because it can really improve life quality and also training outcome. So back to my original line of thinking, and away from, once you understand how emotions are working, you start seeing horses differently. So let's go back to the human mind and the research behind it. We have a little bit of more modern paper, because Festinger is already from 1957, and that is Harmon, Jones, and Mills, for example, from 2019, that is showing that dissonance activates the same brain areas as physical pain. That means that contradiction literally hurts, and I think that on its own is pretty crazy. And of course, we are trying to avoid that pain, right? I mean, it's totally logical what our brain is doing there once we are understanding this mechanism. And to avoid this pain, we are changing our perception instead of the behavior. So I'm not thinking that the people at the FAE are bad people. I think that they have a serious case of cognitive dissonance, maybe. That is not explaining how the dissonance can grow so big as it grew, but that's maybe about all of us to change that in the future and to not accept that anymore. That when we have this feeling in our stomach, when people, or when maybe me, myself, as keeping riding, though the horse is lame because it needs movement for not being lame anymore, or for suppling up, or why a trainer is calling pain resistance. And I know deep in my stomach, my horse is not resistant. It's trying to give me a message that we are going out of this constant Jein, this neither yes nor no zone. And we are brave enough to take the step out. And here we are coming to the little uncomfortable part. And the question is what consistency really means. Because consistency, that isn't a destination, it's practice, right? And it is the ongoing alignment of values, words, and actions. That's not always so easy, and it means you need to have a spine, sometimes for standing up for yourself, but also for your horse. If you say you want to ride ethical, but you are giving in to all the people in the stable that are telling you your horse finally needs to get round, that is not consistency, that is dissonance. If we are talking about welfare, then management and equipment matters. And just recently, I had a lady who was coming here to one of my compass calls asking me for advice on a horse with gastric ulcer. And that gastric ulcer horse was living in a stable where it had 200 minutes of hay per day. 200 minutes, do a quick calculation in your head. I had to do that myself. It's 3 hours and 20 spread over 24 hours. That this isn't enough. Also not enough if I'm spreading that over 7 feeding times each 30 minutes. I mean, that goes without saying, right? Horses need 18 hours of food browsing. They don't need 18 hours of sugar toys, but they need 18 hours of browsing. That we get a problem here with behavior and everything else, and also then eventually physical disease. That should be clear, right? I mean, don't need to explain that. So I had to tell this lady, if nothing is changing, nothing is changing. I can sell you a nutritional analysis, but it won't heal your horse. And that is what is cognitive dissonance for me, and where it's very important for me as a professional to stay consistent and to say, I'm sorry, under these circumstances, I can't help you. You need to change the situation. And please be aware that your stable owner is usually doing the best they can. I don't like it if we see stable owners as our enemies. I think that all of us, we are on a journey and we are learning so much in the latest years. And now it's our moment to transfer this knowledge into praxis. And some of us are faster and others need a little bit more time. But in the end, we all like horses. I hope at least. But if I'm having these values, then I need to keep questioning myself and the situation, and eventually also having the spine to step out of it. So maybe we can say consistency is the quiet luxury of modern horsemanship. And yes, it isn't easy. It takes courage. What's our take-home message for today? Our take-home message for today is that we are living in a world full with cognitive dissonance. And I don't think that the dissonance is a problem. I think it is a signal, and it is whispering, have a closer look. It's uncomfortable and it's honest. And I think we need to learn to keep that space, to live with the uncomfortable moment, and to when we are feeling this inner tug, this subtleness of discomfort, we don't try to change it immediately. We are recognizing it. And maybe we also say, okay, I can feel it. I'm not ready to look at that right now. That is just fine. But eventually I will be ready. Eventually I will be in a place where I have the emotional strengths, maybe also the competence to change the situation. It's our inner compass, and we shouldn't shut it down. We should take it as a pointing in a direction. Because change, it doesn't start with knowledge. Sometimes it is starting with honesty, and sometimes it is starting with this moment of discomfort. And then eventually we are starting to do research and we are gathering competence. And then we can also be the change and lead the change. So that was my message for you today. I wish all of you a very happy weekend. Thank you for sharing the podcast on the socials, and thank you also for having an abonnement on the channel so you don't miss a new episode. My name is Selina Skogan. I am the founder of Equidemia, and in our podcast here, we are trying to match empathy with evidence. If you would like to learn more, and if you would like to join a like-minded community, then you are very welcome to the Equidemia online campus, because there we are working exactly on this transition from knowledge to praxis, from dissonance to consistency, from I hope I'm doing it right to I know why I am doing it this way. That doesn't make life always perfect, but it gives you the possibility to take informed decision. Equidemia is built on 3 pillars, and that is evidence, empathy, and integrity. And that is the kind of guidance you are hopefully looking for. And you can, of course, find the path in the show notes or at equidemia.com. If you don't know where to start, you're welcome in one of our free campus calls with me and our great team. And until then, until I'm seeing you there, I would say stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, happy athletes don't bleed. Have a nice weekend.